Okay, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Package Tourist, hosted by yours truly, the Package Tourist and the magical mystery tour called life, Matthew DiBiase. Tonight's guest is author Rich Shmelter. Rich lives in Ohio, and for the past 20-some years, he has written books dealing with sports history, Hollywood history, and true crime, dealing with the Prohibition era. Tonight, we will discuss and celebrate his latest release, Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot, a tribute to the tireless devotion of actress Carole Landis during World War II, which was released last February. Rich, welcome back to the show. It's always great. It's a great honor always to have you on. I'd like to start off by asking you, Rich, what led you to write about the actress Carole Landis?
Well, Matthew, this goes back a long way. When I was about 11 years old, my uncle was a waist gunner on a B-24 in the South Pacific, and he was injured. And he was in a hospital, and Carole Landis visited him, and my uncle had this roll of money that he was gluing together kind of as a rehab at that time. That's pretty much all that they had to do at that time. And she signed the roll of money, and my uncle, I was crazy about my uncle. Next to my parents, he was the greatest relative ever. And when I saw that signature, I didn't think much about it, but it was real big on there. And a few days after that, my mom and dad were watching TV, and my mom said, "Oh, Rich, this is the lady that signed Uncle Gene's roll of money." And I saw her, and I was like, wow. I mean, I was only 11, and I didn't really know why I liked her, but then a few years later, I realized why I liked her, and I was captivated with that ever since. And that as I started to write, I started to think about how to put a project together dealing with that. And I mentioned my uncle in the book, and that's how I put it all together.
Okay. Now, what sources were you able to uncover while researching this book? Did you get any help at all from her descendants or relatives?
Yes. You know, out of all the 11 previous books that I did, Matthew, this book was the most amazing project because of the amazing people that I had to help me. There was a lady named Liz that runs the CaroleLandis.net website, and she's friends with Carole Landis' great niece, Tammy Powell. And they opened up everything to me. Pictures. If anybody gets the book, hopefully everybody will. But when you look at the book, it's loaded with pictures, and it's all thanks to Liz and the family. And a man named Dave Smith set me straight. He's a kind of a South Pacific aficionado when it comes to the Pacific theater of combat during World War II, and he opened up all kinds of files to me about the tours, and I was able to really get the exact tours because in a couple projects that I did look at, previous projects, the itinerary was a little messed up. This one was dead on, and it lined up perfectly with Jack Benny, who was the master of ceremonies of the tour, and it just everything just clicked. Wonderful, wonderful people that were there to help me.
Okay, Rich. Please share with our audience, what was Carole Landis' background? Where was she born and raised, and where did she go to school, and how was she discovered by Hollywood?
Okay, Carole was born, her real name was Frances Ridsty, and she was born in Fairchild, Wisconsin. She was of German, Polish, and Norwegian background. She was Catholic, and when she was young, her family relocated to Southern California. And Carole always had dreams of being a movie star. I mean, when she was a little girl, she was crazy about Carole Lombard. And ironically, she took the first name of Carole Lombard in tribute to her, and then she just found her name Landis in a phone book. She just went through it and said, it sounds good. And she put Carole and Landis together, and the legend of Carole Landis was born. When she was about 16, she decided to set off on her desire to be a movie actress, and she was armed with $16.82 in her purse. She took a bus to San Francisco, and she had incredible looks. She was 5'6", had a figure of 36, 24, 36. She jumped on a bus from San Bernardino to San Francisco in the spring of 1935, and then she took up some jobs singing, and before you know it, then she was like, you know what, I'm going to go down to Los Angeles in 1936, by the fall of 1936. And she got a manager, and before you know it, in 1936, 37, she started to be just uncredited performers, but with some really power hitters. She started with Judy Garland, Janet Gaynor, William Powell, Louise Rayner, and the Marx Brothers. But I mean, she was just an extra in these movies. And then in the spring of 1937, at the age of 18, she was ready to grace the silver screen on a more consistent basis. And she did an audition with the legendary musical choreographer and film director Busby Berkeley. And that started a romance with him, even though he was much older than her. And one thing just led to another. And her real big break as far as rising from bit player to, I think I know this lady, was in a movie called Varsity Show, 1937 musical about a college campus. So and then after that, she just took off, and one thing led to another, and she started to make, just in 1937 and 1938 alone, she starred in more than 17 films.
Wow. Okay.
And then in 1939, she got her, her big break.
Okay. Now, when you look at her works, what type of characters was she playing? Was it mostly musicals? Was it comedies? Would she do drama? What type of an actress was she? If you could put her into type of genres.
Carole did it all. I mean, she could sing. She was great in comedy. If you ever see the movie Topper Returns, Having Wonderful Crime, and Four Jills in a Jeep, which she made based on her European and North Africa tour, which they, Hollywood glammed it up a little bit to make it not as intense as the actual tour, so it was more of a comedy musical. And she was also great in drama. The movie that I fell in love with her was called I Wake Up Screaming, the one that I previously just said that my mom and dad were watching. I Wake Up Screaming, where she plays a character named Vicki Lynn, and it was the first noir classic from 20th Century Fox, and she started with Betty Grable in that movie. Ooh. And Betty Grable at that time was, Betty Grable.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Betty Grable. Carole Landis outshined her, and she started with Rita Hayworth, and so some real stars she was involved with.
Okay. Now, would you talked about two famous pinups, Rita Hayworth and, of course, Betty Grable. Was Carole Landis herself a pinup?
Yes, she actually did a song called Pinup Girl. And very, very, if you get a chance, if anybody in the audience gets a chance to just punch in Carole Landis, Carole with the E at the end of it, and Carole Landis, Pinup Girl, and you get to see her and really realize why she was a pinup girl. I mean, I personally think that Carole Landis was the sexiest, most gorgeous woman in Hollywood history. And barring none, not even over, I take her even over Marilyn.
Okay. Now, the war has begun. What led her to get involved with USO? Did she have any family, brothers, or cousins who served and fought in the war? Anything of that nature? What led her to get involved with USO?
Well, she just wanted to do her part, and she was very, very determined to do whatever she could. She wanted to, she studied to be a pilot. She had a few hours of experience to her credit, and she considered joining the Auxiliary Territorial Service. It was the women's branch of the British Army during World War II. And by that time, she expressed an interest in going to England, but the ATS, they wanted her to become an English citizen. A citizen of England, and she was an American, true and true. And she wasted no time. She signed up for all kinds. She had boundless energy, and she signed up for all different kinds of different events. And you name the group, she was involved in it. She took rifle practice. She gave blood constantly. She had so many outfits that she used, Matthew, for these different organizations that she was in. She had to keep them in her car because when she was leaving the lot, she had to put on a different uniform all the time. She was so busy. She was for bundles for Blue Jackets for the Navy. She did, you name it, and Carole Landis did it. And that was even before the war was started. And then after the war started in December of 1941, she was totally committed to join the USO, which was just getting started. And she wanted to be a part of the first USO tour, but she couldn't because she was making a movie called The Powerless Girl. And they wouldn't let her, 20th Century Fox would not let her out of her contract. It would not give her the opportunity to go. So she waited, and then when the second opportunity came in October of 1942, she jumped at it. And as a matter of fact, they were called the Four Jills. It was actress Kay Francis and comedian Martha Ray and dancer Mitzi Mayfair, and of course Carole. And the four of them became the only all-female touring group of World War II. and they took over England. They went to North Africa. They were there for 5 months, and Carole had her appendix out when she was there. She went through, countless bombings. She was bombed, shelled. She wanted to get as close to the front lines as she possibly could. And the supervisors said, the lower, I don't want to say, not the upper echelon generals, but kind of the middle of the road, were telling her no. Well, she took it all the way to Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Wow.
And he absolutely said, I will get you there. And then Jimmy Doolittle, who led the raid, the 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, Medal of Honor winner and all, he came up to her and said, he goes, if you want to go there, he goes, I will personally fly you there myself.
Well, that's fantastic.
So they got their way, and I mean, her plane almost crashed in. She was in a B-17 bomber, and it almost crashed into the Rock of Gibraltar. The plane was shot at by German fighter planes. She was all dressed up to go perform for the soldiers. She had on a beautiful gown, fancy shoes, a mink stole, and all of a sudden an air raid started, and they were bombing. They basically dragged her out of there, threw her in a foxhole full of 3 inches of mud, and she was just caked with mud. She was in there for like an hour.
Ouch.
She went out all messed up and everything. She cleaned up a little bit and performed, and the people just loved it. The GIs absolutely loved her.
Yeah. Question, it just occurred to me. Can you describe a typical performance by Carole Landis? What was her routine? Was it a set routine? What would she usually do along with her other co-stars? How would a typical show go?
Well, a typical show in Europe and in Africa was a little bit different than the one in the South Pacific, which she went to from July to September of 1944. But from October 42 until February of 43, they would go into these different camp shows. Most of them were for, like the fighter pilots. Those were the different groups there because this was before Normandy.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a large influx of American soldiers. They started to come in around that time, but it wasn't, like the magnitude that it was after Normandy. So most of the people were like, bomber crews, fighter planes, and they would just go and they would perform anywhere. The four Jills, as they were called, would go and they would perform on the back of flatbed trucks. And usually Kate Francis would be the mistress of ceremony. She would come on, tell a few jokes. And then Martha Ray would come in and say some jokes and all. Mitzi Mayfair was an incredible dancer. She had this technique called Lego-matic, where she could take her legs and just, from behind, basically almost touch the back of her head or their legs. And then, after the crowd was all wound up, then Carole Landis would come out and sing seductive songs of that time, love songs, tell some jokes. And the crowd the GIs just loved her. She always had undying devotion to them. She took the time after the shows. She went to hospitals. She sent letters to the GIs. She kept a little notebook, and she would write down all the GIs' names. They were in the hospital or just that she met. And she would write letters home to the GIs' families and all. And she gave it her all. And in the South Pacific, she caught malaria.
Ouch.
She had dysentery. She was she would not slow down from it. And that show, Jack Benny would come out, and he would say some jokes and all. And then June Bruner was a piano player, and she would, bang out some boogie-woogie tunes. And then Martha Tilton, a popular singer of that time, she would come out and sing, and she was cute as a button. And she would come out and sing. And then Larry Adler was a phenomenal harmonica player. He was part of that group. He could play anything on harmonica. He would play the harmonica, and then it was time for Carole Landis. And again, the GIs went wild. She did a love scene with Jack Benny, which pretended like his kisses were so smoldering, and she'd pass out. And the military police would have to come and carry her off. And then she would do jitterbug dancing, which was jitterbug at that time. Jitterbug dancing is very, very physical, and she would dance with all these GIs in tropical heat. Okay, and still look good. She still looked good. I did a documentary on this with a friend of mine, Darren Hayes. You know Darren.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darren and I did a documentary together. We put this together. It basically complements the book. And we found some film. This Liz gave us this film, and we were so excited about it because it fit perfectly into the documentary. And you could see her dancing. I mean, she was just drained. So she had to limit it to four soldiers. Then at the end, they got a kiss. And that was, like the highlight of the thing, to be kissed by Carole Landis.
Okay. Now, you say South Pacific. Was that MacArthur's theater or was that Nimitz's theater?
It was, well, she posed for a picture with Nimitz when they were in Hawaii, but it was more so MacArthur, because she met MacArthur in Australia.
Ooh.
After they had the first leg of the tour, MacArthur had them come to Australia for a few days, just kind of like as an R&R. But to go there for R&R, she was still busy. She didn't feel well, and she went and still performed a little bit there, so it wasn't really R&R, And Carole was also married. She met a fighter pilot, Thomas Wallace, over in Europe, and on their first date, Carole was only in Europe for like 3 days, and they met, and there was sparks between them, and he asked her to marry him right away. Well, she was a little hesitant, because Carole was already married twice before that.
Ooh, okay.
Once when she was 15, and once when she was 20. So, I'm sorry, once when she was 15, and then once when she was about 22 years old.
Okay.
And neither one lasted very long. So she was a little hesitant. And he kept on pressuring. He was this dashing fighter pilot, and she was this glamorous movie star. And eventually, he wore her down. And they got married on January 5th of 1943, only a few days before she was set to go to North Africa. So they never really had much time together. And when they did finally have a little bit of time together, they both realized that it was a mistake.
Yeah.
They got caught up in, like so many people, they got caught up in the war, and, he looked dashing in a uniform, and she, what I mean, that whole army, that whole thing that you see in these romance movies from the 40s. And then they realized that, this really wasn't going anywhere. He didn't like her Hollywood people. She didn't want to, she was still on the cusp of stardom at that time. She didn't want to give that up. So they got divorced in October. They separated in September of 1944. They were divorced in 1945. In July of 1945 was official.
Okay. Now, did Carole receive any type of commendations from the Roosevelt and or Truman administrations?
No, she didn't. And to be honest with you, this Liz that I talked about, she's campaigning hard with her family is to try to get Carole Landis the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And if I could do anything to help that, I mean, I think that this lady did incredible things for the GIs. She was a great moral support. She gave it her all. And I truly believe that her family should be honored with that award.
Rich, can you give a message? If anyone is out there listening and wants to help out, can you tell them to direct them to a website that would help in that cause? Can you suggest something?
There's a website. It's called Get Carole Landis the Congressional Medal of Freedom, and I believe it is on Facebook.
Okay. Now, after the war, what became of Carole Landis? How did her acting career continue and proceed?
Well, she worked for 20th Century Fox. That was her main studio. And Darryl F. Zanuck was in charge of the studio at that time. And he was very powerful. Well, he got a little bit of a bug up his butt when she wanted to go overseas. And she just said, I don't care, I'm going. That meant more to her than anything. So she put her career on hold, even though when she did, in between the tours, she did make 4 movies. And she made a movie called Wintertime, which when she came, that was the first movie that she did when she came back. And Zanuck was so mad at her, he gave her 4th billing. And her role was kind of mediocre, but it was still Carole Landis, and she was adorable in there. And she made 4 Jills in a Jeep, which was Carole wrote a book called 4 Jills in a Jeep about her experience over in Europe and in North Africa. Then 20th Century Fox made a movie about it, but again, she wasn't too pleased with it because they made it into a musical type thing. And a musical comedy, and really didn't depict what these ladies went through. And then she made Secret Command with Pat O'Brien and Having Wonderful Crime, which is a really good movie. She plays kind of a ditzy person trying to solve a crime. And then she went off to the South Pacific. When she came back from the South Pacific, Zanuck, I think this was an ego thing for him. He could have capitalized big time on Carole Landis because Carole Landis ruled, for the GIs. And when the war was over, the GIs were going to see movies. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
That was the entertainment that they had. And he just let her contract go and, did not capitalize on the star power that Carole Landis had with the GIs. So then Carole went over to Europe, and she made some movies over in England. 1947, 1948. And 1946, there's a great movie, folks, called A Scandal in Paris, which is Carole at her sexiest best. So if you ever get a chance to see that, A Scandal in Paris, it's incredible, just incredible.
Who did she co-star with in that movie?
George Sanders.
Ooh, okay, all right, yeah. Okay, and when did she pass away, and where is Carole buried?
Unfortunately, Carole came back to the United States. She started to have an affair with Rex Harrison, an English actor. Probably most people know him for like My Fair Lady and Dr. Dolittle, in the 60s. But he was married to a lady named Lily Palmer. She was an actress, and he wasn't going to leave his family. And she was crazy about him. And they had a big blowout fight in July 4th in 1948 at Carole Landis' house in Pacific Palisades. And on January 5th, 1948, they found Carole, her maid found Carole deceased on the bathroom floor. She was 29 years old. She drank a lot of scotch and she took some sleeping pills. However, I did not put pictures of her in the book like that because I did not want anybody, if people want to see it, they're going to go see them. But you could see that she was, I truly believe, trying to get herself up. And I don't think she intentionally wanted to do that. She was a strict Catholic, and even though, some things in her life, maybe went against the Catholic religion or whatever, suicide was definitely not in the cards. And her family to this day doesn't think that she, committed suicide, that it was an accident. And a lot of people think that Rex Harrison could have helped her, but he maybe didn't. I don't want to say too much on that account, but a lot of people think that he might have, maybe not tried too hard to help save her, and that she could have still been alive at that time. But she was only 29 years old, and she was buried a few days later in Forest Lawn Cemetery in Glendale, California, which is real close to Los Angeles.
Rich, the way you describe the story, do you think a movie could be made about what she did? I mean, do you think a movie could be made?
I'm telling you, Matthew, yes, 100%. I would be the first one there to help be the technical advisor. I mean, I would love to see something like that happen. I truly think, just her experiences, and do it in the right way. Not like the movie Four Jills in a Jeep, where it's like this musical comedy and, ha, 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 everybody loved all this stuff. Do it the right way and just talk about her trials and tribulations and stuff that led to her untimely demise.
I know it's a surprise question, but if you could name a today's actress who could play Carole Landis, whom would you nominate for that role if they translated your book into Hollywood? Do any actress come to mind who could play her in a movie?
Margot Robbie, Jennifer Lawrence. Both of them have incredible shapes. So I would say those two would probably be, Margot Robbie and Jennifer Lawrence would be the perfect ones. And they're both incredible actresses.
Okay.
And I truly believe they would be perfect for the part.
Rich, please tell our listeners, where can readers find this beautiful book?
You can go to any bookstore and they can order it for you, or you can just go to Amazon and punch in Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot. It will come up. And also there's a documentary, if you punch in Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot, a documentary also complements the book, which I don't say, the documentary is an hour long, but it's just kind of an overview of everything. The book really gets in depth with the battles. This is a perfect book for people that are into World War II, which there's a lot of people like that. It depicts all the places Carole was and what went on at the time. So it's a World War II book, and it's also a Hollywood book. So it's basically a few books, and also female empowerment. This lady was very, very headstrong and remained steadfast in her quest to do what she had to do for the American fighting forces, regardless of personal, put herself in personal danger. So, yeah, it covers many different topics.
Okay. Rich, what is your next book project and when can we expect its release?
Well, Matthew, I just want to say that this book, this Hollywood's Glamorous Patriot, no matter if I do 1,000 more books, this truly is my opus. This was incredible subject matter. I had the greatest time of my life doing this project, and I want to keep promoting it as much as I can. My next book coming out, and I just want to give a shout-out to a great person, a good friend of mine, Brian Shepard, who turned me on to so many different things with AI that was able to, help me do some things with like some photos and everything like that. So Brian, shout out to you, man. You changed my life forever. And also, the next book coming up is going to be called Gridiron Warriors: Tales from Professional Football's Championship Games Before There Was a Super Bowl. And that'll be coming out actually in about a month. And then after that, I have a book called Harlotwood about prostitution during the historic Los Angeles days, from years and years ago, and a book on Bugsy Siegel in Los Angeles called Hollywood Mop Star.
Wow. There's no keeping you down, Rich. There's no keeping you down, man.
I have a feeling if you want me, I'll be on your show talking about them all.
Oh, you better believe it, my friend. You better believe it. Okay, Rich, you take care and you have a great evening, okay?
You too, my friend, and as always, had a great time with you.
Thank you. God bless you. All right.
Right back at you.
Okay, bye-bye. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for my next show where I'll be interviewing author Walter Roach. Thank you and good night.